What is up, Rap Potential YouTube, and welcome to another rally car video part, whatever number. We're going to put the engine, transmission, rear axle, and front suspension on in this video and sit this car on the ground for the first time in a minute. So, for those of you who haven't been following along, we have basically stripped this whole car down. This is a 1984 Mazda RX7 GSL SE rally car, which is a mouthful in and of itself. However, it's a cool car. So we had this on a rotisserie and flipped it upside down, cleaned the whole entire bottom, painted the bottom, and it is beautiful. Full on beautiful. Best side of the car. Right now, looks like a piece of junk, but underneath is beautiful. So I cleaned the transmission. It's looking minty fresh. I may hit this one little corner of it right here that's got some like black paint on it or something. It's not grease. May just hit that with the wire wheel, get some of this little crud off of it. We got the time-lapse camera set up. We're going to slap the trans in it. This engine is not the one for this car. This is actually one out of one of the junk cars that's down there in the field. It's a GSL SE 6-port block, so something cool. Got to tear it apart at some point, or maybe just shove it back in a car and make it run with the carburetor, because it does have reasonable compression. This is the engine for this car. Now, it's not super clean. Water pump's touched up, looks alright. Water pump's fine, everything's fine. This was running in this car before I took the car apart for paint. So we're going to put this engine back in. It should be good to go. Although not being perfectly clean and mint like the rest of the car, like the engine bay, this engine should be good to go back in there. So, trans is going in right now. The engine is going in next. And then the rear axle, which is right here, assembled to be able to go into the car already. The silicone should be dried. I can tighten up all the, snug down and super tighten all those bolts. Axle shafts are in. This is good enough to go underneath the car. I still need to clean the springs, and I haven't decided if I'm going to replace the shocks, but for sure at least clean up the shocks and at least repaint the outside of them just to make them look nice. They're in good shape. One's got a little ding on the dust cover we may have to bend out. But other than that, the shocks should be fine. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with this car before I took it apart for paint. So, just wanted it to look sick. So, let's get to the live action. This isn't going to take super long for me or you guys. So, basically, the general premise of putting this transmission in without anything else in here, I'm going to throw it on my floor jack it up. It only takes 2 bolts on the trans cross member. These 2 go in there. It's rubber mounted to the body. So that'll go on, as you can see, here and here. And then the engine has the front motor plate still on it right here. So you have to, once the back of the transmission is bolted in, you have to support the transmission still and then drop the engine in. And when you hook all the bell housing bolts, the engine and trans are supported from the back of the transmission and the front of the engine. And then all of that should be good to go. All these brake lines and stuff we'll have to pull up out of the way. am missing a couple of these little brake line clips, so I may have to go rob some from one of the junk cars, clean them, paint them, then we can use them on this, just to make sure every single bolt hole is filled, because I did go through and shaved this engine bay, so all the unnecessary stuff is gone. So, get stoked, get pumped. Front shocks are looking sick. The control arms are painted. I got new control arm bushings up there. I still got to clean and paint the tension rods, but that's okay. And we've got, it's ready, literally ready to get put back together. So, without further ado, let's start building stuff. we're back. We've made good progress in this little bit of time. So the axle is now hanging in here by the limits of the upper links and Watts link. You notice how beautiful and pretty it is under there. Everything's just loose. Basically, I'm going to set the springs in it whenever I set it on the ground, such that I can work on the interior. Before we get to the engine bay stuff, the interior stuff that I need to do, which I'll start basically cleaning and painting what would be behind the dash and below the windshield and in front of the shifter, because I plan to add a dash bar to this car. I don't know why it doesn't have one. It should have one. On some tech sheets, some tech things, they'll consider like a dash support bar as that bar, but on an FB there actually isn't one. There is like a huge structure for the dash, but it is not like a tube. You know, like on a Miata you have a tube. So I don't know. I don't know why or how it doesn't have one. I'll say that I'm happy to not have rallied this car without the dash bar, but I don't know if that's a requirement. I mean, if you can imagine a side impact that hits the car right here, there is no bracing to keep it from crushing your legs against the tunnel. You know, that dash bar there is there to keep your leg structure safe. It's gonna buckle under, but you should maintain a space for your legs. You know, I don't know. I'm not too keen on that, so I want to add one. But the big thing is I need to fit in here the heater, AC, all the required stuff to keep the defrost and heat working within the dash. Because the dash bar, I don't want it to impede that function. So one of the rally tricks is whenever it's like raining or crappy and you need to defrost your windshield, because you're harnessed in, you can't just reach up there and wipe it off. So you take like a stick or a jack handle, tie a bunch of microfibers to the end of it, and then my dad or co-driver can reach over and clean the windshield. So I don't want to have to do that with this. I want to keep the defroster and everything on the car. You know, we have it. Why not use it, right? So the engine is sitting in here. Transmission is in here. Everything's looking fresh. I got to get the lower intake manifold painted. Like I mentioned, I need to get some more of these little brake line clips off one of my parts cars, get them painted so I can mount the vent line, get the fuel lines and brake lines all tucked up so that they're fixed instead of just, you know, dangling around. But it does look nice having this in here. I am just happy that it's not on the floor anymore and it's in there. When you have a ton of rotary engine parts, everything tends to get in the way when you have engines on the ground, and you can see that like an engine sat here for a while, the engine sat there for a while, there's an engine on my stand again, there's an engine in the car, there's like 6 engines up here, there's 2 more engines in that box over there, or in the cabinet, there's another engine on top of the cabinet, there used to be an engine underneath my desk for a while, so, you know, there's a piston engine on the workbench. But regardless, it's nice to just have it in the car. Transmission's out of the way, everything's clean, bell housing bolts are in, and everything's tight. So that stuff's solid. So tomorrow, when we come back here in 4.2 seconds for you, but a little bit longer than that for me, I'm going to be putting on the front suspension, putting the rear suspension on, and taking it off of these jack stands. So that will be the next bit, because once it's sitting down, then I can start working inside the car, moving around, climbing in and out. I feel a lot safer that way because it won't fall off the jack stands. So that's just me. And I do have it, yes, up on these rims so that it's super tall. Nissan 300ZX wheels. But having it up higher like that helped me a lot whenever I needed to respray the engine bay. And it just makes it easier to put everything together. With the tractor and my engine hoist, it shouldn't be too hard to get it off of these. They're not that much taller than the regular jack. So let's get to putting suspension on and getting this out on the ground. Alright guys, welcome back. We have concluded putting all of the suspension and brakes components back on the car. For the most part. I don't have like the booster, the front brake lines, all that stuff on there. I don't have brake pads in anything. They're just, the calipers are on there, rotors are on. Basically just pop the calipers up, put pads in, put it back on, bleed the brakes. So it shouldn't be too hard. Everything's still going to need to be nut and bolt checked, and the front's going to need a good alignment. One thing to note, when you are putting suspension on with any sort of rubber bushing, don't tighten down any of the bolts that have rubber bushings in them until you have the car sitting on its weight. So you need to weight the car. Like on this one, I can put jack stands under the axle and put jack stands under the front control arms and weight the car, tighten those bolts down, then go ahead and continue to drive it. If you tighten them all down while the suspension is drooped out, whenever you set the car on the ground and the suspension compresses, it's actually going to twist the poly bushing or twist the rubber bushing, and it's going to act as a torsional spring, and that's going to make your ride really stiff. So just so you know, make sure you do that. Here's a little action of the front. Everything looking tidy and fresh. Pretty stoked. I apologize for rusty brake rotors, but they're perfectly fine. They're just, you know, rally car spec dirty, so they get to live on the car. Same thing with this side. I know I said in this video that we were going to put it on the ground, but I've got the gas tank fully prepped, painted, ready to go. It's sitting outside the garage door. And then I've got to clean the gas tank straps right here and paint those tonight so that I can hang the gas tank tomorrow. It's just getting a little later, so I figured I could do that. Finish this up tonight, hang the gas tank tomorrow. We'll put the rear springs in. I do need to as well fix up the shocks real quick tonight or tomorrow. So these are like big rally spec Johnnies, and they're kind of beat. So I may hit up. I dropped a bushing. Anyways, so I may hit up. See, I don't like that. So I may hit up some of the other rally guys that have RX7s with stock rear suspension, or just any of the road race guys, and see if I can find a good replacement shock for the back. I know of some good ones for the street, but the thing that's important with rally stuff is the diameter of the shaft in the middle. So for example, this chrome shaft here, which these are actually adjustable front struts. If you didn't know that. Harder, softer, no clue what brand. But there's a knob on both sides. Anyways, an aside, but I need to try to find a set of rear shocks, I think, for the car, order brake pads for the car, but I'd like them to be, like I said, a rally spec shock. What happens in rally whenever you hit jumps and stuff, and just any sort of abusive driving, when you land, if you bottom out, if you don't bottom out, there's a lot of force that goes through that shock really fast, and you can bend the shock, I guess, like alignment rod, the chrome rod, whatever you want to call it. Somebody comment below what it's actually called, but the chrome rod, you can bend that. Once that's bent, the shock will no longer travel, and you get locked up. So, for example, I think it was Southern Ohio Forest Rally. There was a guy with an Audi Quattro, something, 1989. Really sweet car, 5-cylinder, turbo, not the UR Quattro, but like a later roundabout style. Anyways, he hit one of the, there's a jump or one stage, dropped it in a ditch, and smashed one of his front struts up. So basically, he bottomed out his front strut completely. When this part contacted the top, it bent the shock rod in the middle, and then that strut, for the rest of the event, was stuck upwards. So like when he'd come into service, the car was all cocked because he had a bent strut. So anyways, that's, 6 minutes of me talking about suspension stuff. But what I'm going to do is hop under here, hook up the e-brake cables, put a couple more of those little brake line clips. I found some of them. What the heck? Where'd they go? I had a bunch of them. I put them in here. No. Oh well, I guess I had some of them. Now I don't. But I had and found some of those little brake line, the flat things that hold your brake line to the car. Oh, here they are. These guys, apologize my dirty hands, but so I got to clean up a couple more of these. These will go on the car to basically hold and suspend. You can see here like the brake and fuel lines, so they're nice and hard mounted. This one will get a couple going across, but there are some like evap and a couple other hard lines that go across here, especially too. You have your front brake line to that side. Your clutch has a hard line that comes through here. You guys will laugh if you made it this far in the video. I'm sitting over here taking a break a little while ago. I found this. For those of you who know what this is a throwout bearing. I don't just keep throwout bearings on my workbench, which means that this is the throwout bearing from that transmission, because I probably took it out whenever I pressure washed it, which means I got to take the transmission back out. No big deal though, because it's only 2 bolts. See, got to stock a fresh one as well. But for now, I have probably a half hour worth of work that you guys will not be able to see on the camera, because it's as simple as hooking up the e-brake cables, the little pins. I got to put, like I said, a couple of those things, the little brake clips on the bottom, hook up the brake lines on the rear axle. I'm going to go ahead and set the springs in there, and then it's ready to sit on the ground. I don't have a whole lot of like nice and clean wheels to stick on this whenever I do sit it on the ground, so I'm probably going to use, there's a set Charles loaned me for my 99 car, but I haven't used them. There's a set of like Rhoda Inky something 4-spoke funky looking 17-inch wheels or 16-inch wheels out there that are clean with like low profile tires. So I'll probably throw those on it for now if I can find lug nuts to fit, because I'd like to have it all matching just so it doesn't look terrible when you guys see it. And those will be good enough. I can mask them off whenever I paint the rest of the car. So we're at a good point now. Tomorrow I will button up the last few things and get it sitting on the ground. We'll get the gas tank in it tomorrow, fuel lines and stuff hooked up, and I'll probably drop the transmission out tomorrow just so it's done. Put the throw-up bearing back in. But the next video, this thing, expect it to be 100% on the ground. You can see we're really close right now, and we're going to start tearing into cleaning the inside. So I stocked up on some cleaning, prepping wire wheels, sanding pads, you name it, from Tractor Supply today, and I'm getting stoked. Or I am stoked to start working on the interior. One more area to finish before we get to paint the outside of the car, and this thing will look like $1 million. So with that, thank you guys very much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see some more videos, and we will chat at you later. Keep it rad.